When runaway Maya Cruz stumbles into a cold barn seeking shelter, she never expects to find warmth in the man who owns it. But as her dark past finds her, will Rose Hill still offer her a future? Before we get into the story, comment below where, in the world you're watching from today? The night was cold and dark as Maya Cruz huddled deeper into her thin jacket. 3 days without a proper roof over her head had left her exhausted. Her fingers were numb, and her stomach growled with hunger. The small town she'd ended up in wasn't even on her radar when she'd escaped the bus station days ago. Just keep moving, she whispered to herself, her breath visible in the chilly air. That's when she saw it, Rose Hill Farm. The large barn stood like a shadow against the night sky. Maya hesitated. She wasn't a thief, but she needed shelter. Just for one night, she approached carefully, making sure no lights were on in the nearby farmhouse. The barn door creaked slightly as she pushed it open, and she froze, listening for any sign that someone had heard. Nothing but silence greeted her. Inside, the barn smelled of hay and animals. It was warmer than outside, and Maya felt a wave of relief wash over her. She spotted a ladder leading up to the hayloft and climbed it quickly, her small duffel bag bumping against her back. The hayloft was dry and relatively comfortable. Maya arranged some hay into a makeshift bed, placed her duffel bag under her, head as a pillow, and pulled her jacket tightly around her thin frame. Just until morning, she promised herself quietly. Then I'll disappear. Sleep came quickly, her body surrendering to exhaustion. For the first time in days, she felt almost safe. Morning arrived too soon. The sound of roosters crowing and animals stirring below woke Maya with a start. Sunlight streamed through the cracks in the barn walls. She had overslept. Quickly, she gathered her things, preparing to slip away before anyone discovered her. But as she moved toward the ladder, the rustling of hay beneath her feet seemed impossibly loud. She froze when she heard movement below. You don't have to hide, you know. The deep, calm voice came from directly below her hiding spot. Maya's heart pounded in her chest. Slowly, she peered over the edge of the loft. A man stood there, looking up at her. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with sleeves rolled up to his elbows and work boots dusted with soil from the fields. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes held no anger. Maya began, but words failed her. She was trespassing. He could call the police. This place is small compared to my heart, the man said, his voice gentle. You're safe here if you want to be. Maya stared at him, confused by the unexpected kindness. People weren't kind without wanting something in return. That's what life had taught her. I'm Daniel Whitmore, he continued. This is my farm. I'm sorry, Maya finally managed. I just needed somewhere to sleep. I'll go right now. Are you hungry? Daniel asked, ignoring her apology. I was about to have breakfast. Maya's stomach growled loudly in response, and a flush of embarrassment colored her cheeks. That sounds like a yes, Daniel said with a small smile. Come on down, no strings attached, just breakfast. Maya hesitated, clutching her duffel bag. Every instinct told her to run, but where would she go? And her body desperately needed food. Okay, she said finally, just breakfast. She climbed down the ladder carefully, keeping a safe distance from Daniel when her feet touched the ground. I'm Maya, she offered, not giving her last name. Thank you for not calling the cops. Daniel nodded. Come on, the house is this way. The farmhouse was older but well-maintained. Inside it was clean but sparse, as if missing a woman's touch. The kitchen was large with an old wooden table in the center. Sit, Daniel said, gesturing to a chair. Coffee? Maya nodded, watching cautiously as he moved around the kitchen. He seemed comfortable in the space, cracking eggs into a pan and putting bread in the toaster. So, Daniel said as he worked, where are you headed? Maya tensed. Just passing through. Daniel nodded, not pushing for more. Well, you picked a good barn to sleep in. Mine doesn't leak, at least not much. The simple joke caught Maya off guard, and she almost smiled. I've slept in worse places. Daniel placed a plate of eggs and toast in front of her, along with a mug of steaming coffee. Maya tried not to grab the food too eagerly, but she was starving. Thank you, she said, taking a small bite and then quickly following it with larger ones. Daniel sat across from her with his own plate. Been on the road long? Maya chewed slowly, considering how much to share. A few days. Daniel nodded, seeming to understand her reluctance. I've got some work to do around the farm today. If you need a place to stay another night, the offer stands. No questions asked. Maya looked up, surprised. Why would you do that? You don't know me. Daniel shrugged. I know what it's like to need help and not want to ask for it. There was something in his eyes, a quiet sadness that resonated with Maya. She wondered about his story but didn't ask. He was giving her privacy. She could do the same. After breakfast, Maya insisted on washing the dishes. It was the least she could do. As she stood at the sink, she looked out the window at the farm. It was beautiful in the morning light, fields stretching to the horizon, a small vegetable garden near the house, chickens pecking in a fenced yard. I should go, she said when the dishes were done, though part of her didn't want to. Where? Daniel asked simply. Maya had no answer. She had left with no plan except to get away. I can't just stay here for free, she said finally. I could use some help around the farm, Daniel offered. If you're willing to work, you can stay in the spare room, better than the hayloft. Maya considered his offer. Work for shelter. It seemed fair, and it would give her time to figure out her next move. Okay, she agreed cautiously. I can work. I'm stronger than I look. Daniel nodded. I believe you. He showed her to a small bedroom upstairs. It was simple, a twin bed, with a patchwork quilt, a wooden dresser and a window overlooking the fields. Bathrooms down the hall, Daniel said. Towels in the closet there, make yourself at home. When he left, Maya sat on the edge of the bed, overwhelmed by the turn of events. She hadn't expected kindness from a stranger. It made her uneasy, waiting for the catch, but also desperately hopeful. Later that day, Daniel showed her around the farm. Rose Hill wasn't huge, but it was well kept. Chickens, a vegetable garden, some fields of corn, and a few cows made up the operation. So it's been in my family for generations, Daniel explained as they walked. My father passed away last year. My brothers left for the city years ago. It's just me now. I'm sorry about your father, Maya said softly. Daniel nodded his thanks. What about you? Any family looking for you? Maya stiffened. No, no one's looking. Daniel seemed to sense her discomfort and changed the subject. Well, if you're going to help out, we should start with the chickens. Easiest job on the farm. Maya spent the afternoon learning to feed chickens and collect eggs. The work was simple but satisfying. Daniel was patient, showing her what to do without making her feel stupid when she made mistakes. That evening, they ate a simple dinner of soup and bread. The conversation was minimal, but the silence wasn't uncomfortable. Maya offered to clean, up again, and Daniel let her. As she washed dishes, she caught sight of her reflection in the window. She looked thin, tired, but something in her eyes had changed. The constant fear had dimmed just slightly. Days passed and Maya fell into a routine. Mornings with the chickens, afternoons in the garden, or helping with whatever chores Daniel assigned. She worked hard, wanting to earn her keep. The physical labor was a welcome distraction from her thoughts. Daniel didn't ask questions about her past, and Maya was grateful. Instead, he taught her about farming, how to tell when vegetables were ready to harvest, how to check eggs for cracks, how to mend fences. A week into her stay, Maya was scrubbing the kitchen floor when Daniel came in from the fields. He stopped, in the doorway, watching her. You don't have to do that, he said. Maya looked up. I want to help. You've given me a place to stay. You've already done more than enough, Daniel replied. The garden looks better than it has in years. Maya felt a flush of pride at the praise, then immediately tried to push the feeling away. She didn't deserve praise. She didn't deserve any of this kindness. It's no big deal, she said, returning to the floor. That evening after dinner, they sat on the porch as the sun set over the fields. Daniel's dog, an old golden retriever named Max, lay at Maya's feet. She had been cautious around the dog at first, but Max was gentle and seemed to sense her need for space. How long have you had him? Maya asked, watching as Max dozed. 10 years, Daniel said. Dad got him as a pup. He's a good boy. As if hearing the praise, Max lifted his head and then, to Maya's surprise, got up and put his head in her lap. She tensed for a moment, before cautiously petting his soft fur. "He likes you," Daniel observed. Maya smiled, a real smile that transformed her face. A quiet laugh escaped her as Max pushed his head against her hand, demanding more pets. Daniel watched her, something shifting in his expression. "You have a nice laugh," he said softly. Maya's smile faded and she looked away, uncomfortable with the compliment. "I don't laugh much anymore." Daniel didn't push, and they sat in silence as darkness fell over the farm. 2 weeks turned into 3. Maya began to relax just a little. She started humming while she worked in the garden, old songs her grandmother had taught her. Sometimes, when she thought no one was listening, she sang quietly, finding comfort in the familiar melodies. One afternoon, Daniel found her in the garden, singing to the tomato plants as she weeded around them. "Sorry," she said, embarrassed to be caught. "Don't be," Daniel replied. "It's nice, the plants probably grow better with music." Maya smiled despite herself. "My grandmother used to say that. She had the most amazing garden." It was the first personal detail she had shared, and Daniel seemed to recognize the significance. He nodded, not pressing for more. "I'm heading into town for supplies," he said. "Need anything?" Maya shook her head. She had nothing to buy, and being seen in town made her nervous. While Daniel was gone, Maya finished weeding and then moved to the porch to shell peas. As she worked, she noticed a pair of work boots by the door, old, worn boots that were clearly too small for Daniel. Something about them made her heart ache. They must have belonged to his father. The way they sat there, as if waiting for their owner to return, struck a chord in Maya. She knew what it was like to lose people, to be left with only their things as reminders. When Daniel returned, he found her still on the porch staring at the boots. "They were Dad's," he confirmed, setting down his shopping bags. "Can't bring myself to move them." Maya nodded, understanding. "I have my grandmother's scarf," she said quietly. "It's all I have left of her." Daniel sat beside her on the porch. "Steps, you miss her." It wasn't a question, but Maya answered anyway. "Every day." They sat together as the afternoon faded into evening, a new understanding between them. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. The walls of the spare room seemed to close in on her, not because she felt trapped, but because she was starting to feel at home, and that terrified her. She didn't deserve a home, not after what happened. She got up and went downstairs, moving quietly so as not to wake Daniel. In the kitchen, she made a cup of tea and sat at the table, thoughts swirling. She didn't hear Daniel enter until he spoke. "Couldn't sleep?" Maya jumped slightly. "Sorry if I woke you." "You didn't," Daniel assured her, making his own cup of tea. "I don't sleep well most nights." In the dim light of the kitchen, with the rest of the world asleep, Maya felt brave enough to ask, "What happened to you, Daniel? You said you know what it's like to need help and not want to ask for it." Daniel was quiet for a long moment. "I was engaged once," he finally said. "Everyone in town knew me as the happy guy, the one who had it all figured out. Then my fiancé left, right around the time Dad got sick. I had to take care of him, watch him fade away. Nobody saw that part. The golden boy of the county, not so golden anymore." Maya reached across the table and briefly touched his hand, a gesture of understanding that surprised them both. "I'm running. From someone," she admitted, the words barely audible. "Someone who hurt me, who made me believe I was nothing." Daniel's hand turned over, capturing hers. "You're not nothing, Maya." The simple declaration brought tears to her eyes. She pulled her hand away, not ready for the comfort or the connection. "We should get some sleep," she said, standing up. Daniel nodded, respecting her need for distance. "Good night, Maya." "Good night," she replied, heading back upstairs with her heart beating too fast. The next morning, Daniel didn't mention their late-night conversation, and neither did Maya. But something had shifted between them. A wall had come down, just a little. As Maya fed the chickens, she found herself smiling. For the first time in a long time, she felt something like peace. The constant urge to run had quieted. Here on this farm, with this quiet, kind man, she felt safe. That afternoon, as rain began to fall, Maya and Daniel worked together in the barn, organizing tools and repairing equipment. "How did you learn all this?" Maya asked, watching as Daniel fixed a broken rake handle. Dad taught me, Daniel replied. Said a farmer needs to know how to fix everything, because things always break at the worst possible time. Maya nodded, handing him a tool when he reached for it. They worked well together, moving around each other with an ease that felt natural. You're good at this, Daniel said, as Maya successfully repaired a chicken feeder. Quick learner. Again, that flush of pride, and again Maya pushed it away. I've always been good with my hands. The rain grew heavier, drumming on the barn roof. There was something cozy about being sheltered together as the storm raged outside. We should head back. To the house before it gets worse, Daniel suggested. They made a dash for it, getting soaked in the short run from barn to porch. Maya laughed as they stumbled inside, rain dripping from their clothes. Wait here, Daniel said, disappearing upstairs. He returned with towels, handing one to Maya. As she dried her hair, Maya caught Daniel watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. What? She asked, suddenly self-conscious. You're different when you laugh, he said simply. Lighter. Maya didn't know how to respond. She wasn't used to being seen, really seen. That evening, they sat by the fireplace as the rain continued outside. Maya found herself stealing glances at Daniel, the way the firelight played across his features, the strength in his hands, the kindness in his eyes. She was falling for him. The realization hit her like a physical blow. This wasn't supposed to happen. She wasn't supposed to stay, wasn't supposed to care, wasn't supposed to want. I should get some sleep, she said abruptly, standing up. Daniel looked surprised by her sudden movement, but nodded. Good night, Maya. Good night, she replied, hurrying upstairs to the safety of her room. Alone, Maya paced the small space. This was dangerous. She couldn't allow herself to have feelings for Daniel. She wasn't free to feel, to love, to start over. Her past would catch up eventually. It always did. Just until I save some money, she whispered to herself. Then I'll go. But even as she made the promise, she knew it would break her heart to leave Rose Hill Farm, and the man who had shown her more kindness in a month than she had known in years. The next morning, Maya was quiet, keeping her distance from Daniel. He noticed but didn't comment, giving her the space she seemed to need. By afternoon, the awkwardness had become unbearable. Maya was in the kitchen preparing vegetables for dinner when Daniel came in from the fields. Did I do something wrong? He asked directly. Maya shook her head, not meeting his eyes. No, you've been nothing but kind. Then why are you pulling away? Maya put down the knife she was using, her hands trembling slightly. Because I can't stay, Daniel. I can't have this. Why not? His voice was gentle but insistent. Because I don't deserve it. The words burst from her with unexpected force. I don't deserve kindness or safety or... She stopped herself before saying, love. Daniel stepped closer, careful not to crowd her. Everyone deserves kindness, Maya, especially those who've been denied it. Maya looked up at him, tears threatening. You don't know what I've done, what I've been through. Then tell me, Daniel said simply. I'm a good listener. Maya shook her head. I can't, not yet. Daniel nodded, accepting her answer. Whenever you're ready, if you're ever ready, no pressure. The relief Maya felt at his understanding was overwhelming. She had expected him to push to demand answers. But Daniel wasn't like that, wasn't like him. Thank you, she whispered. Daniel smiled, that gentle smile that made Maya's heart beat faster. Now, what can I do to help with dinner? Just like that, the tension eased. They worked together in the kitchen, the silence comfortable once more. 1 month turned into 2. Maya stopped making promises to herself about leaving. Each day at Rose Hill felt like a gift, a chance to heal. The work was hard but satisfying. The company was easy but meaningful. And Daniel was becoming someone she couldn't imagine, living without. They still had their secrets, their wounds. But slowly they were showing each other the broken pieces, finding comfort in shared understanding. One evening, Daniel came home with a package. Got something for you, he said, placing it on the kitchen table. Maya looked at it suspiciously. What is it? Open it and see, Daniel encouraged. Maya carefully unwrapped the package to find a pair of boots, women's work boots, her size. Brand new, Daniel, she began, overwhelmed by the gesture. Your sneakers are falling apart, Daniel pointed out. You need proper boots for farm work. Maya touched the boots, running her fingers over the sturdy leather. I can't accept these. Why not? Daniel asked. I don't deserve anything like this, Maya said quietly, the words revealing more than she intended. Daniel's expression softened. He took her hand, waiting until she met his eyes. Then I'll keep giving until you believe you do. Maya felt something crack inside her, a wall she had built to protect herself beginning to crumble. No one had ever believed in her worth so completely, so stubbornly. Try them on, Daniel urged. Maya sat down and pulled on the boots. They fit perfectly. She stood up, taking a few experimental steps. How do they feel? Daniel asked. Good, Maya admitted, a small smile playing at her lips. Really? Good? Daniel smiled back, pleased. They're yours, no arguments. That night, Maya placed the boots carefully by her bed, still in disbelief that someone would give her such a thoughtful gift with no expectation of anything in return. As she drifted off to sleep, she allowed herself to imagine, just for a moment, that this could be her life, this farm, this peace, this man who saw her value when she couldn't see it herself. For the first time since she'd arrived at Rosehill, Maya didn't dream of running. She dreamed of staying. The next morning dawned bright and clear. Maya put on her new boots and headed downstairs, ready to start the day. She found Daniel on the porch, coffee in hand, looking out at the driveway with a tense expression. What's wrong? She asked, joining him. Daniel didn't answer immediately, and Maya followed his gaze. A truck was coming up the long dirt road to the farm, dust billowing behind it. Are you expecting someone? Maya asked, anxiety beginning to coil in her stomach. No, Daniel replied, his voice tight. The truck got closer, and Maya felt her world beginning to tilt. Something about the vehicle was familiar, too familiar. It pulled up in front of the house, and a man stepped out. Maya's blood turned to ice. Hello, Maya, the man called, his voice carrying across the yard. Found you at last. Daniel looked at Maya, seeing the terror on her face. Who is he? He asked quietly. Maya's voice was barely audible, her whole body trembling. He says he's my husband. The man approached the porch, a smile on his face that didn't reach his eyes. Been looking everywhere for you, sweetheart. Time to come home. Daniel stepped slightly in front of Maya, protective. I think you should leave. The man's smile faded. This is between me and my wife. Ex-wife, Maya forced out, finding her voice. The divorce was final. Papers can be faked, the man replied smoothly. But that's a discussion for another time. He turned his attention to Daniel. I don't know what she's told you, but Maya belongs with me, and if she doesn't come home willingly... He paused, his threat hanging in the air. Well, I'd hate to see anything happen to this beautiful farm of yours. Maya felt her world collapsing. Her past had found her just as she'd feared, and now Daniel and Rosehill were in danger because of her. I'll go, she whispered, defeated. No, Daniel said firmly, his eyes never leaving the man on his property. Maya doesn't belong to anyone, and she's not going anywhere she doesn't want to go. The man's expression hardened. You don't know who you're dealing with, farmer. I can take everything from you, starting with this land. Maya looked between the two men, one who had hurt her, broken her, made her fear her own shadow, and one who had shown her kindness, given her shelter, made her believe she might be worthy of love. In that moment, standing on the porch of Rosehill, farm in the boots Daniel had given her, Maya faced the choice that would define her future. Would she keep running from her past? Or would she finally stand her ground and fight for the place and the man who had offered her more than shelter? Maya stood frozen on the porch, her new boots suddenly feeling heavy on her feet. The man who had haunted her nightmares for months was now standing in front of Rosehill Farm, threatening everything she had come to love. James, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Please leave. James Lynch smiled, that familiar smile that had once charmed her and later terrified her. Not without you, Maya. We have unfinished business. Daniel remained firmly at Maya's side, his presence giving her strength she didn't know she had. There's nothing unfinished between us, Maya insisted. The divorce is final, I have the papers. James laughed, the sound sending chills down Maya's spine. Papers can be challenged, especially when they were signed under questionable circumstances. What do you want? Daniel asked, his voice calm but with an edge of steel Maya hadn't heard before. James looked Daniel up and down, assessing him. I want my wife back, and I'm prepared to make life very difficult for anyone who stands in my way. He turned his attention back to Maya. You think I don't know about your little arrangement here? Living with a stranger, working on his farm. What would the authorities think about that? Maya felt sick. She knew James was manipulative enough to twist the truth, to make her seem unstable or worse. There's nothing illegal about helping someone in need, Daniel replied evenly. James shrugged. Maybe not. But I know people in this county, important people. One word from me about suspicious activities at Rose Hill Farm, and you could face all kinds of problems. Health inspections, tax audits, loan reviews. Maya saw Daniel tense slightly. At the mention of loans, she remembered him mentioning that times had been tough since his father died. You can't do that, Maya said. Can't I? James smirked. Try me. A heavy silence fell over the three of them. Maya knew James well enough to know he wasn't bluffing. He had connections, money, and a vindictive streak a mile wide. I'll give you some time to think about it, James finally said, backing toward his truck. I'm staying at the Valley Inn in town. You have until tomorrow evening to make the right decision, Maya. He looked at Daniel. If she's not at the hotel by 7 p.m. tomorrow, I start making calls. With that, he climbed into his truck and drove away, leaving a cloud of dust and fear behind him. As soon as he was out of sight, Maya's legs gave way. She sank onto the porch steps, trembling. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I never meant to bring this to your door. Daniel sat beside her, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel his warmth. This isn't your fault, Maya. It is, she insisted. I should have told you. I should have left before he found me. Tell me now, Daniel said gently. Whatever. It is. We'll face it together. Maya looked at him, this man who had shown her nothing but kindness since the moment they met. He deserved the truth. James and I were married for 3 years, she began, her voice small but determined. At first everything was perfect. He was charming, successful, kind, or so I thought. But after we got married, things changed. Daniel listened silently. As Maya continued, it started small, comments about my clothes, my friends, my job. Then he wanted to know where I was every minute of the day. He checked my phone, my computer. If I was 5 minutes late coming home, there would be consequences. Her hand unconsciously went to her arm, where the scars from one such consequence remained hidden beneath her sleeve. The physical stuff came later, she admitted. By then I was so isolated, so convinced that everything was my fault, that I didn't know how to leave. Daniel's hands clenched into fists, but he remained quiet, letting her tell her story. My grandmother died last year. She was the only family. I had left. James didn't even let me go to the funeral alone, said I couldn't be trusted. But her lawyer contacted me afterward. She had left me a small inheritance. Not much, but enough to start over if I was careful. Maya took a deep breath. I started planning then. Saved a little money on the side. Got copies of important documents. Found out about a women's shelter 3 towns over. And then when James was away on a business trip, I ran. She looked down at her hands. He found me at the shelter after a month. I barely got away. Been running ever since, staying in cheap motels, bus stations, anywhere I could. That's how I ended up here. The bus broke down and I just walked. The silence stretched between them. Maya was afraid to look at Daniel, afraid to see judgment or worse, pity in his eyes. You're the bravest person I've ever met, Daniel said finally. Maya looked up, surprised. What? You survived. You got away. That takes incredible courage. Tears welled in Maya's eyes. I don't feel brave. I feel scared all the time. Being scared and being brave aren't opposites, Daniel said softly. Being brave is doing what needs to be done even when you're terrified. A single tear slipped down Maya's cheek. What am I going to do, Daniel? He'll destroy your farm if I don't go with him. You're not going anywhere with him, Daniel said firmly. This is your home now if you want it to be. Home. The word hit Maya like a physical force. She hadn't had a real home since before her. Marriage hadn't allowed herself to even think of having one again. But he'll follow through on his threats, Maya argued. You've worked too hard to lose this place because of me. Daniel shook his head. We'll figure it out. Together. The simplicity of his faith in them, in her, was overwhelming. Maya wiped away her tears and nodded. Together, she repeated, the word a promise. They spent the rest of the day making plans. Daniel called his lawyer, an old friend of his father's, and explained the situation. The lawyer promised to look into restraining orders and what legal protections might be available. Maya was quiet during the call, doubt gnawing at her. Legal solutions took time. James wouldn't wait. As evening fell, they sat at the kitchen table. Papers spread out before them. Farm documents, Maya's divorce papers, notes from their conversation with the lawyer. There has to be something we can use against him, Daniel said, frustration evident in his voice. Maya sighed. James is careful, always has been. Any evidence I had of the abuse, he destroyed before I left. A thought struck Daniel. What about your grandmother's inheritance? If he was so controlling, I bet he didn't know about it. Maya considered this. You're right. The lawyer contacted me directly, and I opened a separate account. James never knew. That's something, Daniel said. It shows premeditation on your part, that you were planning to leave, not just running away on impulse like he probably tells people. Maya nodded slowly. But is it enough? Before Daniel could answer, there was a knock at the door. They both froze. Stay here, Daniel said, moving cautiously to the front door. Maya's heart pounded as she heard the door open, followed by a woman's voice. Not James, then. She let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Daniel returned to the kitchen with an older woman, her grey hair pulled back in a neat bun, her expression concerned. Maya, this is Martha Johnson, Daniel introduced her. She was my dad's nurse when he was sick. She's also the town gossip in the best possible way. Martha smiled warmly at Maya. I was dropping off some preserves for Daniel when I saw that fancy truck at the Valley Inn. Thought you should know there's a stranger in town asking questions about Rose Hill Farm and a woman who might be staying. Here? Maya and Daniel exchanged looks. Thank you for the warning, Martha, Daniel said. Martha's eyes narrowed slightly as she looked between them. That man, trouble for you? Maya hesitated, then nodded. My ex-husband. He's not a good person. Martha sniffed. I could tell that much just looking at him. Too slick by half. She sat down at the table without invitation, making herself at home. Now tell me what's going on and how I can help. To Maya's surprise, Daniel began explaining the situation. Martha listened without interruption, her expression growing increasingly concerned. That's a nasty piece of work you married, dear, she said to Maya when Daniel finished. But you're not alone now. This town takes care of its own. I'm not, Maya began. You're at Rose Hill, Martha interrupted. That makes you one of us. The simple acceptance in the older woman's voice brought fresh tears to Maya's eyes. Martha reached across the table and patted Maya's hand. Now here's what we're going to do. That man thinks he has connections? Wait until he meets the Rose Hill grapevine. By the time Martha left an hour later, a plan was taking shape. Not a perfect plan, but better than nothing. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She stood at her bedroom window, looking out at the moonlit farm. In just a few months, this place had become more of a home than anywhere she'd lived in years. The thought of leaving it, leaving Daniel, made her physically ache. A soft knock at her door startled her. Maya? Daniel's voice was quiet. You? Awake? She opened the door to find him looking as sleepless as she felt. I couldn't sleep either, he admitted. They ended up in the kitchen, mugs of tea between them, the ticking of the old clock on the wall the only sound. I keep thinking, Daniel finally said, breaking the silence, about what you said, about not deserving kindness. Maya looked down at her tea, unable to meet his eyes. The thing is, Daniel continued, nobody deserves what happened to you. Nobody. And everybody deserves kindness, especially those who've been denied it. Daniel, Maya began, but he gently cut her off. Let me finish. When my dad got sick and Jennifer, my fiancée, left, I thought I'd failed, that I wasn't enough, that I didn't deserve happiness. Maya looked up at him, surprised by the vulnerability in his voice. It took me a long time to realize that sometimes bad things just happen, Daniel said. It's not about deserving or not deserving. It's about what we do next, how we choose to live. And how do we choose? Maya asked. Softly, Daniel reached across the table and took her hand. One day at a time. Together, if that's what you want. Maya looked at their joined hands, his large and calloused from farm work, hers smaller but just as work-worn now. I want that more than anything, she admitted, finally allowing herself to voice the truth she'd been hiding from. But I'm afraid, Daniel, not just of James, but of this, of caring about someone again, of being hurt. I'm scared, too, Daniel confessed, but I think you're worth the risk. In that moment, in the quiet kitchen with moonlight streaming through the windows, Maya made her decision. She wasn't going to run anymore. She was going to stand and fight. For herself, for Daniel, for the life they might build together. So, "Are you?" she said, squeezing his hand. Morning came too quickly. Maya and Daniel worked side by side, completing the essential farm chores. Neither mentioned the deadline hanging over them, 7 p.m. at the Valley Inn. Around noon, Martha returned, bringing with her 3 other women from town. This is Elaine from the diner, Martha introduced them. Lucy from the post office, and Sarah, who runs the hardware store. They're here to help. Maya was overwhelmed by the support of these strangers. Thank you, but I don't want anyone else getting hurt because of me. Elaine, a stout woman with kind eyes, shook her head. Honey, men. Like your ex, count on women staying quiet and isolated. Not happening on our watch. The women had brought information. James Lynch had been asking questions all over town about Daniel's financial situation, about Maya, about the farm. He's been talking to Frank Wilson at the bank, Lucy reported. I overheard them at the diner this morning. Daniel frowned. Frank handles the farm loan. And he's been to the county records office, Sarah added, asking about property lines and easements. He's looking for leverage, Maya said, a chill running through her. Ways to pressure us. 2 can play that game, Martha declared. I've been making some calls of my own. It turned out that Martha's niece worked for a law firm in the city, where Maya and James had lived. She couldn't tell me much, confidentiality and all that, but she did say your ex has been involved in some questionable business deals. Nothing proven, but where there's smoke, Maya wasn't surprised. James had always been secretive about parts of his business, even from her, especially from her. If we could prove he was involved in something illegal, Daniel mused. It might. Give us some protection. He wouldn't want that kind of attention. We don't have time to investigate his business dealings, Maya pointed out. The deadline is tonight. Then we need to buy time, Daniel decided. They spent the afternoon refining their plan. It wasn't perfect, but it was the best they could do with the limited time and resources they had. As evening approached, Maya changed into the nicest clothes she had, jeans without holes and a clean blue shirt she'd borrowed from Daniel's mother's old things. She wanted to look strong, not beaten down when she faced James. Daniel found her in the living room, staring at her reflection in the old mirror above the fireplace. You don't have to do this, he said softly. Maya turned to him. Yes, I do. It's the only way. Daniel crossed the room to stand before her. Without a word, he pulled her into his arms, holding her close. Maya stiffened for a moment, then relaxed into his embrace, allowing herself to draw strength from his warmth. Be careful, he whispered against her hair. Maya nodded, pulling back to look up at him. I will. Before she could second-guess herself, Maya stood on tiptoe and pressed a quick, soft kiss to Daniel's lips. It was brief, just a moment of connection, but it held a promise of return, of future, of possibilities. For luck, she said, stepping back. Daniel looked stunned, then smiled, a real smile that transformed his serious face. I'll be right where we planned. Maya nodded and headed for the door. It was time to face James. The Valley Inn was the only hotel in town, a two-story building with a small restaurant attached. Maya parked Daniel's old truck in the lot, took a deep breath, and went inside. James was waiting in the restaurant, a glass of whiskey in front of him. He smiled when he saw her, that charming smile that had once made her heart race but now only made her stomach clench with anxiety. "Maya," he said, standing as she approached. "I knew you'd make the right decision." "Hello, James," she replied, not sitting down. "I'm here to talk, that's all." James's smile faltered slightly. "Sit down. Have a drink." "I'd rather stand." His expression hardened. "Always stubborn. That's what got you into trouble in the first place, remember?" Maya did remember the arguments, the punishments, the gradual erosion of her will. But she wasn't that person anymore. "I remember everything, James. That's why I left." James glanced around the restaurant, aware of the eyes on them. "Let's discuss this in private. I have a room upstairs." "No," Maya said firmly. "Whatever you have to say, you can say it here." James's jaw tightened. "Fine, you've had your little adventure. Now it's time to come home. I'm willing to forget this indiscretion with the farmer. We can start fresh." Maya almost laughed. "Start fresh? After everything you did to me." "I did nothing that you didn't deserve," James hissed, his mask of charm slipping. "You were my wife. You had responsibilities." "Being your wife didn't make me your property," Maya replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "The divorce is final, James. I'm not coming back." James's eyes narrowed. "Then your farmer friend will lose everything. I've already spoken to the bank. His loan is underwater. One word from me about his inappropriate relationship with a married woman, and they'll call in the loan immediately." "Ex-wife," a voice said from behind them. Maya turned to see Martha and Elaine approaching their table, both wearing expressions of stern disapproval. "Excuse me," James said, clearly annoyed by the interruption. "She's your ex-wife," Martha repeated. "I'm Martha Johnson, by the way. I was a witness at the county clerk's office when they filed the certified copy of the divorce decree this morning. Signed, sealed, and delivered. All legal and proper." James looked between Martha and Maya, confusion replacing his confidence. "What are you talking about? What clerk?" "Our county clerk," Elaine chimed in. "Copies of divorce decrees from other counties get filed here all the time when residents move. Makes it official locally. Isn't that right, Sheriff?" Sheriff Tom Baker, who had been quietly having dinner at a nearby table, stood up and approached them. He was an older man with graying hair and a no-nonsense demeanor that had made him the longest-serving sheriff in county history. "That's right. Elaine," he confirmed. "Once it's in our records, it's as official here as it was in the original county." He turned to James. "Mr. Lynch, I presume?" James straightened his tie, trying to regain his composure. "Yes. And you are?" "Sheriff Baker. I understand you've been making some threats against one of our local farmers." "I've done no such thing," James denied smoothly. "I'm simply trying to reconcile with my wife, who's been staying with a man she barely knows. I'm concerned for her safety and mental well-being." "Ex-wife," the sheriff corrected. "And as for her mental well-being, I'm more concerned about these." He placed a folder on the table. Inside were photographs, pictures of Maya from before, with bruises on her arms, a split lip, a black eye. Maya gasped. She had taken those pictures as evidence, but James had found them and destroyed them, or so she thought. "Where did you get these?" James demanded, his face flushing with anger. "You deleted them from Maya's phone," another voice said. Lucy from the post office stepped forward. "But they were backed up to her cloud account. My son works in IT. He helped us recover them this afternoon." Maya stared at the photographs, memories of each injury flooding back. But instead of fear, she felt something else, validation, proof that she hadn't imagined or exaggerated what had happened to her. "This proves nothing," James insisted, though his confidence was clearly shaken. "She could have gotten those injuries anywhere." "The timestamps match up with hospital visits," the sheriff countered. "We pulled those records too." James's face went pale. "You had no right—" "Actually, we had every right," the sheriff interrupted. "When a citizen of my county is being threatened, I take it personally." He looked at Maya. Ms. Cruz, do you want to press charges for the previous assaults? The statute of limitations hasn't expired. Maya looked at James, the man who had once been the center of her world, who had systematically broken her down until she hardly recognized herself. Now he was the one who looked small and afraid. Not today, she decided. What I want is for James to leave, to go back home and never contact me again. The sheriff nodded. Mr. Lynch, I suggest you check out of the hotel and be on your way. If you come near Ms. Cruz or Rose Hill Farm again, she might reconsider pressing charges. And I'll personally make sure those pictures end up in front of a judge. James looked from the sheriff to Maya, rage and disbelief warring in his expression. This isn't over, he said, his voice low. Yes, it is, came Daniel's voice from the doorway of the restaurant. He walked over to stand beside Maya. She's not alone anymore, Lynch, remember that. James looked at the group arrayed against him. Maya, Daniel, the sheriff, and the 3 town women. For the first time since Maya had known him, James Lynch looked truly defeated. Without another word, he threw some money on the table to pay for his drink and stormed out of the restaurant. Maya watched him go, hardly able to believe what had just happened. She turned to the others, overwhelmed with gratitude. I don't know how to thank you all, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Martha waved her hand dismissively. No need for thanks. That's what community is for. The sheriff collected the photographs and handed them to Maya. Keep these somewhere safe, just in case. And if he ever comes back or contacts you, call me immediately. Maya nodded, clutching the folder. I will. Sayo did good standing up to him like that, the sheriff added. Takes courage. As the group dispersed, Daniel and Maya were left alone in the middle of the restaurant. Maya suddenly felt drained, the adrenaline of the confrontation leaving, her body all at once. Let's go home, Daniel said softly, placing a gentle hand on her back. Home. The word still filled Maya with wonder. The drive back to Rose Hill was quiet, both of them processing what had happened. When they reached the farm, Maya stepped out of the truck and looked up at the night sky, full of stars. She took a deep breath of the clean country air, feeling truly free for the first time in years. Do you think he's really gone? She asked. As they walked to the porch, Daniel considered the question. For now, at least, he's a coward at heart, all bullies are. They sat side by side on the porch steps, the same spot where they had sat the morning James had first appeared. I can't believe Martha and the others did all that for me, Maya said. They barely know me. That's small-town life for you, Daniel replied with a small smile. Everyone knows everyone's business, but when trouble comes, they circle the wagons. Maya leaned her head against Daniel's shoulder, allowing herself the comfort of his closeness. Thank you for standing by me. Daniel put his arm around her, pulling her gently against his side. Always. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds of the farm, crickets chirping, the occasional lowing of a cow in the barn, the rustle of leaves in the light breeze. About that kiss, Daniel finally said. Maya felt a blush rise to her cheeks. For luck, she reminded him, though they both knew it was more than that. Did it work? He asked, a hint of teasing in his voice. Maya looked up at him, at this man who had become her sanctuary, her strength, her heart. I think it did. Daniel's hand came up to cup her cheek, his touch gentle. Maybe we should try again, just to be sure. Maya smiled and leaned in as Daniel's lips met hers. This kiss was different from the first, slower, deeper, full of promise and possibility. When they finally pulled apart, Maya felt lightheaded, her heart racing for all the right reasons. Definitely lucky, Daniel murmured, his forehead resting against hers. Maya laughed softly, a sound of pure joy. The road ahead might not be easy. James might return. The farm had financial troubles and her own healing had only just begun. But for the first time in a long time, Maya Cruz was looking forward to tomorrow. In the days that followed, life at Rose Hill settled into a new normal. The threat of James still lingered in the back of Maya's mind. But with each day that passed without word from him, she breathed a little easier. Word had spread through town about what had happened at the Valley Inn. Maya found herself greeted with warm smiles and friendly nods when she went into town with Daniel to run errands. The community had claimed her as one of their own, and the feeling of belonging was both strange and wonderful. One afternoon, as Maya weeded the vegetable garden, she heard the sound of a car coming up the driveway. Her heart jumped into her throat, fear an automatic response. But when she looked up, she saw a familiar sheriff's vehicle. Daniel came out of the barn as Sheriff Baker parked and got out of his car. "Afternoon, Daniel, Maya," he greeted them, tipping his hat. "Just thought I'd stop by with an update." "Any news?" Daniel asked, coming to stand beside Maya. The sheriff nodded. "Got a call from the police department in Mr. Lynch's hometown. Seems your ex-husband has some explaining to do about his business practices. They've opened an investigation into possible fraud and tax evasion." Maya wasn't surprised. James had always been secretive about parts of his business. "He won't be bothering you anytime soon," the sheriff continued. "He's got bigger problems now." "Thank you for letting us know," Maya said, relief washing over her. "No problem, just doing my job." The sheriff looked between them with a knowing smile. "You two take care of each other." After he left, Maya and Daniel stood in the garden, the weight of fear finally lifting from Maya's shoulders. "Hey, it's really over," she said, hardly believing it. Daniel took her hand, squeezing it gently. A new beginning. That evening, as the sun set over Rose Hill Farm, Maya stood on the porch, watching the golden light play across the fields. Daniel joined her, 2 mugs of coffee in his hands. "Penny, for your thoughts," he said, handing her one of the mugs. Maya smiled, accepting the coffee. "I was just thinking about that first morning when you found me in the hayloft. Do you remember what you said to me?" Daniel nodded. "This place is small compared to my heart. You're safe here if you want to be." "I didn't believe you then," Maya admitted. "I couldn't, but I do now." Daniel set his mug down on the porch railing and turned to face her. "Maya, I know it's only been a few months, and you've been through so much. I don't want to rush you, but I need you to know that I'm falling in love with you." Maya's heart swelled at his words. "Daniel." "You don't have to say anything," he assured her quickly. "I just wanted you to know." Maya set her own mug down and took both of Daniel's hands in hers. "I'm falling in love with you too," she said softly. "I think I have been since you offered me breakfast that first morning." The smile that broke across Daniel's face was like sunshine after rain. He pulled her gently into his arms, and Maya went willingly, fitting against him as if she had always belonged there. "So what happens now?" she asked, her voice muffled against his chest. Daniel pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "Now we take it one day at a time, together." Maya looked up at him, at this man who had shown her that kindness didn't always come with conditions, that love didn't have to hurt. "Together," she agreed, standing on tiptoe to kiss him as the last rays of sunlight bathed Rose Hill Farm in golden light. In that moment, Maya Cruz knew she had finally found her home, not just in this place, but in Daniel Whitmore's heart. A heart big enough to shelter her, to heal her, to love her. A heart that made everything else seem small in comparison. Autumn came to Rose Hill Farm, painting the countryside in shades of gold and red. 3 months had passed since James Lynch had been driven from town, and Maya had begun to believe in the possibility of a happy ending. Her relationship with Daniel had deepened with each passing day. They worked side by side on the farm, shared quiet evenings on the porch, and slowly, carefully explored the feelings growing between them. Daniel never pushed, always letting Maya set the pace, understanding that her wounds needed time to heal. One crisp October morning, Maya stood in the kitchen, making breakfast as Daniel came in from the barn. The sight of him, tall, strong, his face lighting up when he saw her, still made her heart skip. "Morning," he said, crossing the room to press a kiss to her forehead. "Smells good. Just eggs and bacon," Maya replied with a smile. "Nothing fancy." "Perfect," Daniel declared, washing his hands at the sink. They ate together at the kitchen table, discussing the day ahead. The harvest was in full swing, and there was always more work than hours in the day. "I was thinking," Daniel said, setting down his coffee mug, "we should go into town tonight, have dinner at Elaine's diner, take a night off." Maya nodded. "That sounds nice. We could both use a break." The truth was, they rarely went out together. Maya was still getting used to the idea of being part of a couple again, one that people saw and acknowledged openly. It was both thrilling and terrifying. "It's a date, then," Daniel said with a smile that made Maya's cheeks warm. Later that afternoon, as Maya was hanging laundry on the line behind the house, she heard a car coming up the driveway. Visitors to Rose Hill were rare enough that she still felt a moment of panic whenever someone arrived unexpectedly. She walked around to the front of the house to see a sleek black car parked there, much fancier than any vehicle usually seen in their small town. A woman was getting out, tall, elegant, with long blonde hair and the kind of polished appearance that made Maya immediately conscious of her worn jeans and faded shirt. "Can I help you?" Maya called, approaching cautiously. The woman turned, assessing Maya with cool blue eyes. "I'm looking for Daniel Whitmore. Is he around?" "He's in the North Field," Maya replied. "I can get him for you. Who should I say is asking?" The woman smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Tell him Jennifer is here. Jennifer Hayes, an old friend." Maya felt a jolt of recognition. Jennifer, Daniel's ex-fiancée. The woman who had left when his father got sick. Maya had heard the name, but Daniel rarely spoke of her. I'll go find him," Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady. As she walked toward the North Field, Maya's mind raced. Why was Jennifer here after all this time? What did she want? And why did she look like she had just stepped out of a fashion magazine to visit a working farm? She found Daniel fixing a section of fence, his back to her as she approached. "Daniel?" she called. He turned, wiping sweat from his brow. "Hey, what's up?" "There's someone here to see you," Maya said, unable to keep the tension from her voice. "Jennifer Hayes." Daniel went completely still, his expression changing from surprise to confusion. "Jennifer, here." Maya nodded. "She's waiting by the house." Daniel set down his tools and wiped his hands on his jeans. "I'd better go see what she wants." "Do you want me to come with you?" Maya asked, hating the insecurity she felt. Daniel seemed to sense her unease. He took her hand, squeezing it gently. "If you want to, but there's nothing to worry about. Whatever she's here for, it doesn't change anything between us." Maya nodded, trying to believe him. Together they walked back to the house where Jennifer was examining the porch swing with a look of faint disdain. "Jennifer," Daniel called as they approached. "This is a surprise." Jennifer turned, her face lighting up with a smile that transformed her from merely beautiful to stunning. "Danny, it's so good to see you." She moved forward gracefully and embraced Daniel before he could react. Maya stood awkwardly to the side, watching as Daniel stiffly returned the hug and then quickly stepped back. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice carefully neutral. Jennifer tossed her hair over her shoulder. "Can't a girl visit an old friend? I was in the area for work and thought I'd stop by." She glanced at Maya, her smile dimming slightly. "Aren't you going to introduce us?" "Jennifer, this is Maya Cruz," Daniel said, moving to stand beside Maya. "Maya, this is Jennifer Hayes." "His fiancée," Jennifer added smoothly. "Ex-fiancée," Daniel corrected firmly. Jennifer waved a dismissive, details, water under the bridge." Maya extended her hand politely. "Nice to meet you." Jennifer shook it briefly, her grip limp. "Likewise, so are you the new farmhand?" The question was deliberately obtuse, and Maya saw Daniel's jaw tighten. "Maya lives here," he said. "She's my partner." The word partner sent a warm feeling through Maya's chest, despite the tension of the moment. "How quaint," Jennifer replied, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Well, I won't keep you from your chores. Danny, could we talk privately? I have some news I think you'll want to hear." Daniel looked at Maya, a silent question in his eyes. She nodded slightly, giving him permission. "We can talk in the living room," Daniel said to Jennifer. He turned to Maya. "We won't be long." Maya watched as they went inside, a knot forming in her stomach. She tried to keep busy, returning to the laundry, but her mind was consumed with worry. What news could Jennifer possibly have that was important enough to bring her back after all this time? Inside the house, Daniel led Jennifer to the living room, gesturing for her to sit on the sofa while he remained standing. "What's this about, Jennifer?" he asked directly. Jennifer looked around the room, taking in the simple, slightly worn furniture, the family photos on the wall, the overall lack of luxury. You haven't changed a thing, she observed. It's exactly as it was when your father was alive. Some things are worth preserving, Daniel replied. But you didn't come here to discuss my decorating choices. Jennifer sighed, crossing her legs elegantly. Always so direct. I've missed that about you, Danny. It's Daniel, he corrected. No, one calls me Danny anymore. A flash of irritation crossed Jennifer's face before she composed herself. Fine, Daniel. I'm here because I heard about your financial troubles. Daniel frowned. My financial troubles? From whom? This is a small county, Jennifer replied with a shrug. Word gets around. I know the bank is giving you a hard time about the farm loan. It was true. Despite James Lynch's departure, the bank had continued to pressure Daniel about the loan. The farm was profitable, but only barely, and a series of equipment breakdowns had stretched their finances thin. That's my concern, not yours, Daniel said stiffly. Jennifer leaned forward, her expression earnest. But it could be. My firm is looking to invest in agricultural properties. We could help you, Daniel. Pay off the loan, modernize the equipment, turn Rosehill into a showpiece. Daniel stared at her, realization dawning. You want to buy my farm? Not buy it, Jennifer corrected quickly. Invest in it. You'd retain operational control. We'd just be silent partners. And what would you get out of this arrangement? Daniel asked skeptically. Jennifer smiled. Tax benefits, mainly. Plus it's good PR to support local farms. And, she paused, her voice softening, it would give us a chance to reconnect. I've missed you, Daniel. I made a mistake leaving the way I did. Daniel crossed his arms. You left when my father was dying, when I needed you most. Jennifer had the grace to look ashamed. I know. I was young and selfish. I couldn't handle the sickness, the responsibility. But I've grown up since then. She stood, moving closer to him. We were good together once. We could be again. Daniel stepped back. I'm with Maya now. Jennifer's expression hardened slightly. The girl from the barn? Daniel, be serious. What do you even know about her? Everything that matters, Daniel replied firmly. And I'd appreciate it if you'd show her some respect. Jennifer backed off, raising her hands in a placating gesture. Fine, fine. But my offer stands. Think about it. The investment, I mean. It could save Rosehill. She reached into her designer purse and pulled out a business card. Call me when you're ready to discuss details. No strings attached. Daniel took the card reluctantly. I'll think about it. The investment part, he clarified. Nothing else. Jennifer smiled, seemingly satisfied. That's all I ask, for now. She glanced at her watch. I should go. I have a meeting in the city this evening. Daniel showed her to the door, relieved that the conversation was ending. Outside, Maya was just finishing with the laundry, her back to the house. It was lovely to meet you, Maya, Jennifer called with false warmth. Take good care of Danny for me. Maya turned, her expression carefully neutral. Drive safely. They watched as Jennifer got into her expensive car and drove away, the dust from the driveway settling in her wake. What did she want? Maya asked once the car was out of sight. Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. To invest in the farm, supposedly? Supposedly? I think she wants more than that, Daniel admitted. She said she made a mistake leaving. Maya nodded, a heaviness settling in her chest. I see. Daniel turned to her, taking both her hands in his. Hey, look at me. Maya raised her eyes to his, vulnerability clear in her gaze. Nothing has changed, Daniel assured her. Jennifer walked, away when things got tough. That tells me everything I need to know about her character. She's beautiful, Maya said softly. Successful. You were going to marry her once. A lifetime ago, Daniel replied. Before I knew what really mattered. Before you. Maya wanted to believe him, but Jennifer's polished appearance and confident manner had awakened all her old insecurities. What could Daniel possibly see in her? A damaged woman with nothing to her name, when he could have someone like Jennifer. We should get ready for dinner, she said, changing the subject. If we still want to go. Of course we do, Daniel said, squeezing her hands. Don't let her spoil our plans. But as Maya showered and changed for their dinner date, she couldn't shake the image of Jennifer, perfect, poised Jennifer, standing in their living room like she belonged there. Nor could she ignore the nagging fear that Daniel might be tempted by Jennifer's offer. Not just the business proposition, but the chance to reclaim the life he might have had. When Maya came downstairs in her best jeans and a borrowed blouse of Daniel's mother's, she found him waiting by the door, freshly showered and changed. "You look beautiful," he said sincerely. Maya smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Thank you." The drive to town was quiet, both of them lost in their thoughts. Elaine's diner was busy when they arrived, the dinner crowd in full swing. Several people called greetings as they entered, and Maya was still amazed at how quickly she had been accepted by the townspeople. They were seated at a booth near the window, and Elaine herself came to take their order. "Well, well," she said with a broad smile. "The Rose Hill Lovebirds out on the town. What's the occasion?" "Just needed a night off," Daniel replied with a smile. Elaine nodded approvingly. "About time. You two work too hard." She lowered her voice, conspiratorially. "I heard Miss Fancy Pants paid you a visit today. Jennifer Hayes back in town and stirring up trouble again." News traveled fast in small towns. Maya shouldn't have been surprised. "She just stopped by to say hello," Daniel said. Diplomatically, Elaine snorted. "Sure she did. That woman never does anything without an angle." She patted Maya's hand. "Don't you worry, honey. Our Daniel's got more sense now than he did back then." After Elaine left with their orders, an awkward silence fell between them. Finally, Daniel reached across the table and took Maya's hand. "Talk to me," he said softly. "Tell me what you're thinking." Maya sighed. "I'm being silly. Jennifer's visit just rattled me." "You're not being silly," Daniel assured her. "I should have warned you about her. I just never thought she'd show up like that." "Why did she leave?" Maya asked, the question she'd been wanting to ask for months. "When your dad got sick, I mean." Daniel was quiet for a moment, gathering his thoughts. "She said she couldn't handle the responsibility, the sickness. But I think the truth is, she fell in love with the idea of me, the successful farmer with the golden future, not the real me." "And who is the real you?" Maya asked. Daniel smiled, a touch of sadness in his eyes. "Someone who values loyalty over ambition, family over success, someone who doesn't mind getting his hands dirty." He looked directly at Maya. "Someone who falls in love with a woman's strength and kindness, not her social status." The simple honesty in his words melted some of the ice that had formed around Maya's heart since Jennifer's arrival. "I'm sorry for doubting," she said softly. Daniel squeezed her hand. "Don't be. We all have our insecurities. I just need you to know that what Jennifer and I had, it wasn't real, not like this." Maya nodded, wanting to believe him. Before she could respond, their food arrived, and the conversation shifted to lighter topics: farm business, town gossip, plans for the upcoming harvest festival. By the time they finished dessert, Elaine's famous apple pie, Maya was feeling more like herself. Daniel paid the bill despite her protests, and they stepped out into the cool evening air. "Want to walk a bit before heading home?" Daniel suggested. Maya nodded, and they strolled down Main Street, hand in hand. The small town was quiet at night. Most businesses closed except for the diner and the bar at the end of the street. As they passed the bank, Daniel paused, looking at the dark building with a frown. "What's wrong?" Maya asked. Daniel sighed. "Just thinking about what Jennifer said about the loan." Maya tensed. "Are things worse than you've told me?" "Not worse," Daniel hedged, "but not better either. The equipment repairs this summer set us back, and the irrigation system needs an overhaul before next season." "Could Jennifer's firm really help?" Maya asked, hating the question but needing to know. Daniel shrugged. "Maybe, but I don't trust her motives, and I won't sell my soul to save the farm." Maya squeezed his hand. "We'll figure it out. Together." Daniel smiled down at her, his expression softening. "Yes, we will." They continued their walk, ending up at the small town square where a gazebo stood surrounded by old oak trees. The space was empty, peaceful in the moonlight, Dance with me, Daniel said suddenly. Maya looked at him in surprise. Here? There's no music. We don't need music, Daniel replied, leading her to the gazebo. Under the wooden canopy, Daniel took Maya in his arms, one hand at her waist, the other holding hers. Slowly they began to sway together, the only sound the rustle of leaves and their own breathing. Maya laid her head against Daniel's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. In that moment, all her doubts seemed to fade away. This was real. This was true. Whatever Jennifer Hayes had to offer, it couldn't compare to what she and Daniel had found together. I love you, Daniel whispered against her hair. Only you. Maya looked up at him, her heart full. I love you too. Their lips met in a kiss that started gentle but quickly deepened, both of them pouring their emotions into the connection. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathless. Let's go home, Maya said softly. The drive back to Rosehill was charged with a new energy. They held hands across the truck's bench seat, stealing glances at each other in the darkness. The farm. They moved together into the house, up the stairs to Daniel's bedroom, a room Maya had never entered before. Their relationship had been building slowly, both of them careful not to rush, but tonight felt different. Tonight felt like a turning point. Are you sure? Daniel asked as they stood beside his bed, his voice husky with emotion. Maya nodded, her heart racing with anticipation rather than fear. I'm sure. Later, as they lay together in the darkness, Maya's head on Daniel's chest and his arms around her, she felt a peace she had never known before. Her body, once a source of pain and shame under James's abuse, had become a source of joy and connection. What are you thinking? Daniel asked, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. Maya smiled in the darkness. That I'm happy. Truly happy. Daniel pressed a kiss to her forehead. Me too. As Maya drifted toward sleep, safe in Daniel's embrace, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, her story could have a happy ending after all. The next morning, Maya woke, to sunlight streaming through the bedroom window and the sound of Daniel moving around downstairs. She stretched lazily, her body pleasantly sore from the night's activities. For a moment, she simply lay there, savoring the feeling of waking up in Daniel's bed, surrounded by his scent. When she finally made her way downstairs, dressed in one of Daniel's shirts and her own jeans, she found him in the kitchen making breakfast. Morning, he said with a smile that made her blush. Sleep well? Very, Maya replied, crossing the room to kiss him. Why didn't you wake me? You looked too peaceful to disturb, Daniel said, flipping pancakes on the griddle. Besides, you deserve a morning to sleep in now and then. They ate breakfast together, sharing secret smiles and casual touches, both of them glowing with newfound intimacy. After helping with the dishes, Maya headed upstairs to change into work clothes. The farm wouldn't run itself, no matter how perfect the previous night had been. As she passed Daniel's desk in the hallway, a business card caught her eye. Jennifer's card, propped against the lamp where Daniel must have left it. Maya tried to ignore the twinge of unease it caused. Daniel had been clear about his feelings. Jennifer's offer wasn't a threat to their relationship. The day passed in a blur of work and stolen moments of affection. By evening, Maya was tired but happy as she prepared dinner. Daniel had gone to check on a fence in the far pasture and was running late. As she set the table, headlights swept across the front windows. Maya looked up, expecting to see Daniel's truck, but instead saw the now familiar black car coming up the drive. Jennifer was back. Maya took a deep breath, steeling. Herself. She could handle this. She wasn't the same frightened woman who had climbed into a hayloft months ago. She stepped onto the porch as Jennifer emerged from her car, looking as polished as she had the day before, in a tailored pantsuit that probably cost more than all of Maya's possessions combined. Maya, Jennifer greeted her with false warmth. Is Daniel around? He's checking the far pasture, Maya replied evenly. He should be back soon. You're welcome to wait. Jennifer smiled, a calculating look in her eyes. How kind of you. I won't stay long. I just have some additional information about the investment opportunity that I think Daniel will find interesting. Maya nodded, gesturing toward the house. Would you like some coffee while you wait? That would be lovely, Jennifer replied, following Maya inside. In the kitchen, Maya busied herself making coffee, aware of Jennifer's eyes on her, assessing, judging. So, Jennifer said casually, how long have you and Daniel been together? A few months, Maya replied, not elaborating. Jennifer nodded. And before that? What brought you to Rose Hill Farm? Maya tensed. She didn't owe this woman her life. Sa story. I needed somewhere to stay. Daniel was kind enough to offer. How charitable of him, Jennifer murmured. Daniel always did have a soft spot for strays. Maya set the coffee cup down with more force than necessary. Is there something you want to say to me directly, Jennifer? Jennifer's polite mask slipped, revealing the steel beneath. All right, let's be direct. I know who you are, Maya Cruz, or should I say, Maya Lynch. Maya felt the blood drain from her face. How do you... I did my homework, Jennifer interrupted smoothly. It wasn't hard to find the restraining order your ex-husband filed against you, or the police reports claiming you stole from him before. Disappearing. Those are lies, Maya said, her voice shaking with anger. James was abusive. I ran to save myself. Jennifer shrugged. Perhaps, but Daniel doesn't know about any of this, does he? About the restraining order, the theft accusations, the fact that technically you're still being sought for questioning in another county. Maya gripped the edge of the counter, her knees suddenly weak. What do you want? Jennifer smiled, knowing she had the upper hand. I want what's best for Daniel, and for Rose Hill. My firm can save this farm, give Daniel the security he deserves. All you have to do is step aside. You're blackmailing me, Maya said in disbelief. I'm offering you a choice, Jennifer corrected. Leave now quietly and I'll make sure those legal issues disappear. Stay, and I'll have no choice but to inform Daniel and the local sheriff about your complicated past. Maya felt sick. The life she had built here, the trust she had established, the love she had found, all of it threatened by James's lies and this woman's ambition. Daniel wouldn't believe you, Maya said, but her voice lacked conviction. Jennifer raised an eyebrow. Are you willing to risk it? Risk his reputation in this town when people find out he's harboring a woman wanted for questioning? Risk the farm when the bank hears about it? Before Maya could respond, they heard the sound of Daniel's truck pulling up outside. Jennifer's demeanor instantly changed, her threatening expression replaced by a pleasant smile. Think about it, she said quietly. I'll give you until tomorrow to make the right decision. Daniel entered the kitchen, stopping short when he saw Jennifer. What are you doing here? Just dropping off some additional information about the investment opportunity, Jennifer replied smoothly. Maya was kind enough to offer me coffee while I waited. Daniel looked between the two women, clearly sensing the tension. Maya? Everything. Okay? Maya forced a smile. Fine. Dinner's almost ready. Will Jennifer be joining us? No, Jennifer said quickly. I was just leaving. She handed Daniel a folder. Look this over when you have time. The numbers speak for themselves. She turned to Maya, her smile not reaching her eyes. Lovely to see you again, Maya. Remember what we discussed. After Jennifer left, Daniel turned to Maya with a concerned expression. What was that about? What did she want to discuss with you? Maya considered telling him everything. About Jennifer's threats, about James's lies, about the legal complications she hadn't fully resolved in her haste to escape. But fear held her back. What if Jennifer was right? What if the truth changed how Daniel saw her? Nothing important, she lied, turning back to the stove. Just small talk while we waited for you. Daniel didn't look convinced, but he didn't press the issue. I'm going to wash up before dinner. As he left the kitchen, Maya leaned against the counter, her mind racing. Jennifer's threat hung over her like a storm cloud. She had until tomorrow to decide, stay and risk everything being destroyed, or leave and lose the only real happiness she had ever known. Dinner was a quiet affair, both of them preoccupied with their thoughts. Daniel occasionally glanced at Maya with concern, clearly sensing that something was wrong, but not knowing how to ask. After they cleaned up, Daniel took her hand. Talk to me, Maya. Something's bothering you. Is it Jennifer? Did she say something to upset you? Maya hesitated, torn between honesty and fear. I'm just tired, she said finally. It's been a long day. Daniel nodded, though his expression showed he didn't believe her. Why don't you go up to bed? I'll finish locking up. Maya kissed him softly. I love you, she whispered, suddenly desperate for him to know, to remember, no matter what happened next. I love you too, Daniel replied, his brow furrowed with concern. We'll talk in the morning, okay? Maya nodded and headed upstairs, her heart heavy. In the bedroom, she sat on the edge of the bed, Jennifer's words echoing in her mind. The thought of leaving Daniel was unbearable, but so was the thought of him learning about the legal mess James had created through Jennifer. She had run once before, when staying meant certain harm. Was this the same? Or was running this time? The coward's way out. As the night deepened, Maya made her decision. She would not run. Not again. Not from the life and love she had found at Rose Hill Farm. Whatever Jennifer revealed, whatever consequences came, she would face them with Daniel by her side. If he would have her after learning the whole truth, tomorrow she would tell him everything. About James's false accusations, about the restraining order he had somehow obtained through his connections, about the police report claiming she had stolen from him. The truth was her only weapon against Jennifer's threats. With that resolution, Maya finally fell into a troubled sleep, dreaming of haylofts and safe harbors and storms on the horizon. Morning dawned grey and rainy, matching Maya's mood. She woke early, Daniel still sleeping beside her. Carefully, she slipped out of bed and went downstairs to make coffee, rehearsing in her mind what she would say when he woke. She was so lost in thought that she didn't hear the car approaching until it was pulling up to the house. Through the kitchen window, she saw a sheriff's vehicle. Her heart sank. Had Jennifer already made good on her threat? Taking a deep breath, Maya went to the door. Sheriff Baker was just getting out of his car, his expression grim. Morning, Maya, he said, tipping his hat. Is Daniel around? He's still asleep, Maya replied. Is something wrong? The sheriff sighed. I'm afraid I have some bad news. There was a fire at the bank last night. Started in Frank Wilson's office, Maya gasped. Was anyone hurt? No, thank goodness, but they lost a lot of records, including loan documents. And... He hesitated. Frank says the last person he saw yesterday was Jennifer Hayes, asking questions about Rose Hill's mortgage. Maya's blood ran cold. You don't think... I don't know what to think, the sheriff admitted, but it's mighty suspicious timing. The fire department is calling it arson. Just then, Daniel appeared behind Maya, having come downstairs when he heard voices. Sheriff, what's going on? He asked, placing a protective hand on Maya's shoulder. As the sheriff explained about the fire, Maya watched Daniel's face pale. The bank held not just their loan documents, but the deed to Rose Hill Farm. Without those records, their legal claim to the property could be in jeopardy. I've already put a call into the county records office, Sheriff Baker assured them. They should have copies of the essential documents, but I wanted to warn you that things might get complicated for a while. After the sheriff left, promising to keep them updated on the investigation, Daniel and Maya stood in the kitchen, the implications of what had happened sinking in. Jennifer, Daniel said, his voice hard. She must be behind this somehow. Maya nodded, her earlier fears now overshadowed by this new threat. She came by yesterday with more information about the investment opportunity, said the numbers spoke for themselves. Daniel's expression darkened. And now those numbers are conveniently... Hash! She threatened me, Maya admitted, the words rushing out before she could lose her courage. She said she knew about James, about the restraining order he filed against me, the false theft accusations. She said if I didn't leave, she'd tell you, and the sheriff, everything. Daniel stared at her in shock. Why didn't you tell me? This last night. I was afraid, Maya confessed, tears filling her eyes. Afraid you might believe her. Afraid of losing everything we've built here. Daniel's expression softened. He took Maya's face in his hands, wiping away a tear with his thumb. Maya, listen to me. Nothing Jennifer could say would change how I feel about you. I know who you are, the real you. I trust you. Relief washed over Maya at his words. I was going to tell you everything this morning. About James, about the legal mess he created to try to control me even after I left. Tell me now, Daniel said, leading her to the kitchen table. Everything. And so Maya did, starting with the restraining order James had somehow obtained through his connections, claiming she was unstable and threatening. She told Daniel about the police report James had filed, accusing her of stealing jewelry and cash before disappearing, about how she had been too afraid, too desperate to properly clear her name before running. He knew I'd have to keep running if there were legal questions hanging over me, Maya explained. It was just another form of control. Daniel listened without interruption, his face growing increasingly grim. When she finished, he took her hands in his. "I believe you," he said simply. "And we're going to fix this. All of it." Maya felt a weight lift from her shoulders. "How?" "We start by calling my lawyer," Daniel said firmly. "Then we talk to the sheriff. We face this head-on together." The next few hours were a blur of phone calls and planning. Daniel's lawyer agreed to look into the restraining order and theft accusations, confident they could be dismissed with proper legal representation. The sheriff, when informed of Jennifer's threats, promised to question her about her whereabouts. During the fire, by afternoon they had a plan. It wouldn't be easy or quick, but they had a way forward. As they sat on the porch, watching the rain fall on the fields of Rose Hill, Daniel put his arm around Maya. "You know what I keep thinking." "About?" he asked. Maya looked up at him. "What?" "That first morning when I found you in the hayloft. You looked so scared but so determined. I knew then that you were someone special." Maya leaned against him, drawing strength from his solid presence. "I was terrified. I thought you'd call the police. Instead, I offered you breakfast," Daniel said with a small smile. "Best decision of my life," Maya replied. Accepting that breakfast, Daniel tightened his arm around her. "Whatever happens with Jennifer, with the bank, with any of it, we'll get through it. Rose Hill has weathered worse storms." Maya nodded, believing him. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but they would face it together. And in that moment, as rain fell softly around them and Daniel's heartbeat echoed steady beneath her ear, Maya Cruz finally allowed herself to believe in the possibility of forever. But even as they sat together, finding comfort in each other's presence, neither of them noticed the black car parked just visible at the edge of the property or the figure watching the farmhouse through the rain. Jennifer Hayes wasn't done with Rose Hill Farm, or with Daniel Whitmore. Not by a long shot. The days following the bank fire were tense at Rose Hill Farm. Maya and Daniel worked side by side, trying to maintain their normal routine while dealing with the legal complications that had suddenly enveloped their lives. Daniel's lawyer, a sharp-eyed man named Howard Mills, had started the process of challenging James Lynch's restraining order and theft accusations. Meanwhile, Sheriff Baker was investigating the bank fire, with Jennifer Hayes as his primary person of interest, though there was no concrete evidence linking her to the crime yet. "It's just strange timing," the sheriff had told them during his last visit. "Miss Hayes shows up in town after years away, starts asking questions about Rose Hill's mortgage, and then the bank records go up in flames." Maya couldn't shake the feeling that this was all somehow connected to her past with James. The timing of Jennifer's arrival, her knowledge of Maya's legal troubles, the fire, it felt like more than coincidence. One rainy afternoon, as Maya was cleaning the kitchen, the phone rang. It was Howard Mills with news. "I've been in touch with the county clerk where your ex-husband filed the restraining order," he told Maya. "There are some irregularities in the filing. The judge who signed it has a history of complaints for not properly reviewing cases. And there's something else. Your ex-husband's name appears in connection with an ongoing federal investigation into corporate fraud." Maya's heart raced. "What does that mean for me?" "It means we have leverage," Howard replied. "I've drafted a motion to dismiss the restraining order based on these findings, and I've contacted the detective handling the theft accusation. He's willing to review the case in light of the fraud investigation." After hanging up, Maya immediately found Daniel in the barn, repairing a tractor. His face lit up when she shared the news. "See," he said, pulling her into an embrace despite his grease-stained hands. "I told you we'd fix this." Maya hugged him tightly, allowing herself to hope. "It's a start, but what about the farm? Any news about the mortgage documents?" Daniel's expression sobered. "Not yet. The county records office is still searching for their copies, and the bank is in chaos trying to reconstruct all the lost files." "And Jennifer?" Maya asked hesitantly. No sign of her since the sheriff questioned her about the fire, Daniel replied. She denied any involvement, of course, said she was having dinner with a client in the city that night. Maya nodded, not surprised. Jennifer was too clever to leave obvious evidence, but Maya couldn't shake the feeling that the other woman wasn't done with them yet. That evening, as they sat at the kitchen table reviewing farm accounts, the phone rang again. Daniel answered, his expression changing from curiosity to shock as he listened. "When?" he asked, his voice tense. "Are you sure?" "Yes, we'll be careful. Thanks for letting us know." He hung up and turned to Maya, his face grim. That was Sheriff Baker. James Lynch was spotted in town this afternoon asking directions to Rose Hill Farm. Maya felt the blood drain from her face. "James? Here? But why now?" Daniel shook his head. "I don't know, but the sheriff is sending a deputy to patrol the area tonight, just in case." Maya moved to the window, looking out at the darkening farm with new fear. This doesn't make sense. James gave up, went back home. Why would he come back now? Unless he was invited, Daniel said slowly, realization dawning. Jennifer, what if she contacted him? The pieces suddenly fell into place in Maya's mind. She knew too much about my past. She must have talked to James, maybe even before she came here the first time. Daniel's jaw tightened. They're working together. Jennifer wants the farm and James wants me, Maya finished, a chill running through her. Or revenge for standing up to him. They spent a sleepless night, taking turns watching out the windows, jumping at every sound. The deputy sheriff's occasional drive-by offered some comfort, but not enough. Morning came without incident, though neither of them had gotten much rest. They were in the kitchen having coffee when they heard a car coming up the driveway. Daniel moved to the window, tension evident in his posture. "It's Howard," he said with relief, recognizing his lawyer's car. Howard Mills entered the kitchen with an urgency they hadn't seen in him before. "I've found something," he announced without preamble. "And you're not going to like it." He spread several documents on the table. "I was looking into Jennifer Hayes and her investment firm. The company exists, but it's not what she claimed. It's a shell corporation. And guess who's on the board of directors?" Maya and Daniel leaned forward to see where Howard was pointing. There, listed among the company officers, was a familiar name, James Lynch. "They're working together," Maya whispered, her suspicions confirmed. Howard nodded grimly. "It gets worse. I had a contact at the county records office do some digging. The original deed to Rose Hill Farm was never properly recorded after your father's death, Daniel. There's a loophole in the inheritance. If the bank can't produce the mortgage documents and you can't prove continuous ownership, the farm could potentially be claimed by another party." Daniel stared at the lawyer in disbelief. "That's impossible. My family has owned this land for generations." "Legally, yes, but paperwork matters," Howard explained. "And with the bank records destroyed in the fire, Jennifer and James are trying to steal Rose Hill," Maya realized, horror washing over her. "That's why they're both here." Howard nodded. "I believe so. Jennifer knows about the loophole from her time with you, Daniel. And James has the resources to exploit it." "What can we do?" Daniel asked, his voice tight with anger. "We need to find any documentation you have that proves continuous ownership," Howard replied. "Old tax records, utility bills in your name. Anything that shows you've been operating the farm since your father's death." They spent the morning searching through Daniel's office, digging through filing cabinets and boxes, looking for anything that might help establish his claim to Rose Hill. Maya was going through an old trunk in the attic when she found a dusty folder tucked at the bottom. Inside were photographs, letters, and what looked like a hand-drawn map of Rose Hill Farm with notations in faded ink. At the bottom of the folder was a small book, a journal by the looks of it. Maya brought her findings downstairs where Daniel and Howard were still searching through documents. "I found this in the attic," she said, placing the folder on the table. "I'm not sure if it helps, but it looks old." Daniel opened the journal carefully, its pages yellowed with age. "This is my grandfather's handwriting," he said, scanning the first page. "It's a record of the farm, plantings, harvests, improvements." Howard picked up the map, studying it carefully. "This could be useful. It shows the original boundaries of the property, with your grandfather's notes about purchases of additional acreage." As they were examining the documents, the phone rang. Maya answered, her breath catching when she heard the voice on the other end. "Hello, Maya," Jennifer's smooth voice purred. "I think it's time we had another chat, don't you?" Maya's grip tightened on the receiver. "There's nothing to discuss, Jennifer." "Oh, I think there is," Jennifer replied. "Like the future of Rose Hill Farm. I have an offer for Daniel, a generous one considering the circumstances. One last chance to do this the easy way." "We know about your connection to James," Maya said, cutting to the chase. "We know you're working together." There was a pause on the line. "I see Howard Mills has been busy," Jennifer finally said, her voice cooler. "Then you know we have the legal advantage here. The bank records are gone and Daniel's claim to the farm is questionable at best." "What do you want?" Maya asked, though she already knew the answer. "What I've always wanted," Jennifer replied. "Rose Hill and Daniel. He belongs with me, Maya. We're the same kind of people. You're just a distraction, a charity case he took in." Maya's anger flared. "You don't know anything about us." "I know that I'm offering him a way to keep his farm," Jennifer countered. "Meet me at the Valley Inn at noon. Bring Daniel and tell him to bring the deed if he can find it." The line went dead. Maya turned to Daniel and Howard, relaying Jennifer's message. "It's a trap," Daniel said immediately. "We shouldn't go." Howard considered this. "Actually, it might be an opportunity. If we can get Jennifer to admit what she and James are up to, especially if we can record it somehow." "No," Daniel said firmly. "It's too dangerous. James could be there too." "The sheriff could help," Maya suggested. "If we tell him what we know, maybe he could have officers nearby." They debated the options, finally agreeing to meet Jennifer but with precautions. Howard would contact Sheriff Baker, and they would wear a small recording device the lawyer had from a previous case. As noon approached, Maya changed into her best clothes, not to impress Jennifer, but to face her with confidence. Daniel waited. For her downstairs, his expression worried. "We don't have to do this," he said as she descended the stairs. "We can find another way." Maya shook her head. "No, it's time to end this. I'm tired of running, tired of looking over my shoulder. Jennifer and James need to understand that we're not backing down." Daniel nodded, taking her hand. "Together then." "Together," Maya agreed, squeezing his hand. The Valley Inn was busy when they arrived, the lunch crowd filling the restaurant. Jennifer sat at a table in the corner, looking polished and confident in a designer suit. To Maya's relief, James was nowhere in sight. "Daniel, Maya," Jennifer greeted them with a cold smile. "Thank you for coming. Please sit." They sat across from her, tension crackling between them. Howard had wired Daniel with the small recording device hidden beneath his shirt. "Where's James?" Maya asked directly. "I thought he'd be here for this ambush." Jennifer's smile faltered slightly. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Let's not play games," Daniel said firmly. "We know you and James Lynch are working together. We know about the Shell Corporation, the connection to the bank fire, the plan to exploit the loophole in the farm's deed." Jennifer's composure slipped for a moment before she regained control. "Accusations without proof, Daniel. I expected better from you." "We have proof," Maya countered. "Your company records list James as a director, and the sheriff is very interested in your whereabouts the night of the fire." Jennifer leaned forward, her voice dropping. "Listen carefully. You have no idea who you're dealing with. James has connections that could make both your lives very difficult, but I'm offering a way out." She turned to Daniel. "Sign over the farm to my company, and all of this goes away. Maya's legal troubles, the questions about the deed, everything." "And what about Maya?" Daniel asked, his voice hard. "What happens to her in this scenario?" Jennifer shrugged elegantly. "She's free to go wherever she wants, as long as it's far from here." Daniel shook his head. "That's not going to happen. Maya and I are a package deal, and Rose Hill is our home." "Don't be a fool, Daniel," Jennifer hissed. "You're throwing away everything for this nobody who showed up in your barn. What do you even know about her?" "Everything that matters," Daniel replied calmly. "I know she's strong enough to escape an abuser, smart enough to rebuild her life, and brave enough to stand up to people like you and James." Jennifer's eyes narrowed. "Such nobility. But nobility doesn't pay the bills. Without the bank records, you can't prove the mortgage is current. Without the proper deed, you can't prove ownership. James has already filed a claim based on a distant family connection to the original land grant. It's only a matter of time before... She stopped abruptly, realizing she had said too much. Maya and Daniel exchanged glances, the recording device, capturing every word. "Thank you for confirming everything," Daniel said, standing up. "I think we have what we need." Jennifer's face flushed with anger. "This isn't over. Not by a long shot." "Actually, it is," said a deep voice from behind them. They turned to see Sheriff Baker standing there, having heard the entire exchange. "Miss Hayes, I'd like you to come down to the station. We have some questions about that bank fire and this land claim you just mentioned." Jennifer's composure cracked. "This is ridiculous. You have nothing on me." "We'll see about that," the sheriff replied calmly. "And your friend Mr. Lynch is already waiting at the station. Picked him up this morning trying to break into the county records office." As the sheriff led a protesting Jennifer away, Maya and Daniel stood in stunned silence, hardly daring to believe it might finally be over. "Let's go home," Daniel said finally, taking Maya's hand. "We've got a farm to run." The following weeks brought a flurry of developments. James Lynch was charged with attempted breaking and entering, and the federal investigation into his business practices had expanded to include Jennifer Hayes. The restraining order against Maya was dismissed, and the theft accusations were dropped when evidence of James's fraudulent reports came to light. At Rose Hill, Daniel's grandfather's journal proved invaluable. The detailed records of farm operations, combined with tax documents Howard had found, established continuous family ownership. The county judge dismissed James's spurious claim to the property, and the bank worked with Daniel to reconstruct the mortgage documents, confirming that his loan was in good standing. Life gradually returned to normal, or a new normal, better than before. Maya and Daniel settled into a rhythm, working side by side during the day, sharing quiet evenings on the porch and nights in each other's arms. One crisp autumn evening, as the leaves were beginning to turn golden on the trees surrounding Rose Hill, Daniel suggested a walk after dinner. "The Northfield should be beautiful in this light," he said, a hint of nervousness in his voice that Maya couldn't quite place. They strolled hand in hand through the farm, past the barn where Maya had first sought shelter, across the fields. They had tended together. The setting sun painted everything in warm golden hues. When they reached the Northfield, Daniel led Maya to a large oak tree at its edge, the oldest tree on the property, he had once told her, planted by his great-grandfather when he first claimed the land. "This is my favorite spot on the whole farm," Daniel said, stopping beneath the tree's spreading branches. "I used to come here as a kid when I needed to think. During the hard times after Dad died and the farm was struggling, I'd sit here and try to figure out what to do next." Maya squeezed his hand. "It's beautiful." Daniel turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "Maya, these past months have been the most challenging and the most wonderful of my life. When you climbed into that hayloft, you changed everything, for the better." Maya smiled, feeling tears gathering in her eyes. "You changed everything for me, too. You gave me shelter when I needed it most. And you gave me purpose, hope, love," Daniel replied, his voice thick with emotion. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "I want to keep giving each other those things for the rest of our lives." Maya's breath caught as Daniel knelt on one knee, opening the box, to reveal a simple but beautiful ring. "This was my grandmother's," he explained. "Dad gave it to me before he died, said to save it for when I found the right person." He took a deep breath. "Maya Cruz, will you marry me? Will you make Rose Hill our home, permanently?" Tears spilled down Maya's cheeks as joy filled her heart. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes." Daniel slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her with all the love and promise of their future together. As they walked back to the farmhouse, arms around each other, the lights of Rose Hill glowing. In the distance, Maya thought about the journey that had brought her here. From a frightened woman sleeping in a hayloft to a woman who had found her strength, her voice, and her heart. Daniel had been right that first morning. This place, Rose Hill Farm, was small compared to their hearts, to the love they had found together. And in that love, Maya had finally found a home that could never be taken away. 6 months later, Rose Hill Farm was transformed. White flowers lined the path from the farmhouse to the old oak tree, where Daniel waited in a crisp black suit, his face alight with joy. Friends and neighbors filled the rows of chairs set up in the field, all turned toward the back where Maya would soon appear. Martha Johnson sat in the front row, dabbing at her eyes already, with Elaine, Lucy, and Sarah beside her. Sheriff Baker stood off to the side in his dress uniform, a proud smile on his weathered face. Even Howard Mills had set aside his usual serious demeanor for the occasion, chatting amicably with the other guests. Inside the farmhouse, Maya stood before the mirror in the bedroom she now shared with Daniel. Her dress was simple but elegant, a flowing white gown that made her feel both beautiful and strong. Her hair was adorned with small white flowers, and around her neck hung her grandmother's scarf, refashioned into a delicate wrap. "You look beautiful," came a voice from the doorway. Maya turned to see Martha, who had come to help her with the final preparations. "Thank you," Maya said, smoothing her dress nervously. "I can hardly believe this is happening," Martha smiled warmly. "I can. From the moment Daniel brought you to town, I knew. Some things are just meant to be." A soft knock at the door announced that it was time. Maya took a deep breath, gathering her small bouquet of wildflowers from the farm's meadow. "Ready?" Martha asked. Maya nodded, a serene smile spreading across her face. More than ready. The music began as Maya stepped onto the porch. The gathered guests stood, turning to watch as she made her way down the path toward the oak tree, toward Daniel. His face when he saw her, the love, the pride, the joy, was something Maya knew she would remember for the rest of her life. As she reached him, Daniel took her hands in his eyes never leaving hers. "You are so beautiful," he whispered. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. They exchanged vows they had written themselves, promises of love, support, and partnership. When they were pronounced husband and wife, the cheer that went up from their friends and neighbors seemed to reach the very sky. The celebration afterward was everything a farm wedding should be: tables laden with home-cooked food, music playing. From speakers set up in the barn, dancing under strings of lights as the sun set over Rose Hill. During a quiet moment, as they swayed together to a slow song, Daniel held Maya close. "Happy?" he asked softly. Maya looked up at him, at the face that had become her home, her heart, her everything. "Happier than I ever thought possible." Daniel smiled, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "Me too." And this is just the beginning. As night fell fully, stars appearing above the farm, Maya and Daniel slipped away from the celebration, walking hand in hand to the porch of their home. They stood together, looking out at Rose Hill Farm, at the land they would tend, the life they would build, the love they would grow. "Remember what you said to me that first morning?" Maya asked, leaning against Daniel's solid strength. "This place is small compared to my heart." Daniel nodded, his arm tightening around her waist. "I meant it then. I mean it even more now." Maya turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had given her not just shelter, but a reason to stop running, a place to belong, a love to believe in. "Thank you," she said softly, "for making room for me in your heart." Daniel smiled, the same gentle smile that had first given her hope all those months ago. "There was always room for you, Maya. I was just waiting for you to find your way here." As they stood together on the porch of Rose Hill Farm, the sounds of celebration drifting from the barn, the stars bright overhead, Maya Cruz Whitmore knew that she had finally found what she had been searching for all her life. Not just a place to stay, but a place to belong, a home, a heart, a love bigger than any fear. Rose Hill Farm might be small compared to their hearts, but the life they would build together, that was boundless. The end.